Working with buyers. In today's video, we are going to be talking about taking a buyer prospect and walking them through the process to turn them into a client and ultimately a closed transaction. Because working with buyers can be incredibly exciting and lots of fun. It is super fulfilling watching them go through the process of finding a property and putting in an offer and waiving conditions and then taking possession. And it can also be incredibly frustrating dealing with a client where they have unrealistic expectations and they think that they can get more of a home that they can afford, and they're just not on the same page as you, or they have a business partner or spouse that isn't on the same page, and it ultimately leads to a lost transaction, which means wasted time for you and ultimately wasted money as well, okay? And this whole process is an accumulation of everything that I've learned working with buyers, and really focuses on taking more time to develop the relationship and the trust with the prospect and really establish proper expectations while providing value and showcasing my knowledge on the market and how it affects their purchase and why they should ultimately choose to partner with us on their purchase of a home, okay? And what's really important to understand is that real estate is a game of chess, not checkers. And we need to understand that every move that we do, it's going to have an effect later on down the line. And because, especially when we're dealing with buyers, first-time buyers specifically, and people who have varying levels of market knowledge and have different expectations of how the market is going to be affecting them, we need to come from a place of education and value while also looking out for their best interests. And there's a lot of conversations that we need to have in order to set expectations, and the earlier on that these conversations have, they are going to serve us later on in the sales process. And if we don't have these conversations, they can end up blowing up in our face and lose us the deal later on, okay? So there's the long way and the wrong way to do things, and in this video, we're really going to be going through step by step what to do from the first conversation to the consultation, to the showings, the offer, the negotiation, and the closing, and everything else in between, to make sure that you are developing the relationship with the prospect, providing as much value as possible, and setting the right expectations, which is ultimately going to give you the best chance at success in closing the deal, okay? So let's dive right in, and starting off with the qualification conversation, okay? And one thing you'll notice with the way that we have this outline, guys, it is all relationship focused while also giving and educating the prospect to ultimately develop their trust and work through the process in a way that creates urgency, okay? And this is incredibly important, especially if you're dealing with leads that come from a colder source like advertising, like Facebook Marketplace, where you haven't developed any trust or a relationship with the prospect, so they don't know who you are, the value that you provide, and we have to lean in as giving as much value and educating them as much as possible. And this starts at the first conversation, the first qualification conversation, and is ultimately the most important, okay? So the objective of the first conversation is to establish a relationship and create the connection that goes beyond the transaction, okay? So in this conversation, we want to be genuine, we want to be empathetic, we want to be approachable, while not making the prospect feel like they're being interrogated, right? I see a lot of agents just cut right to the chase where they're like, okay, what are you buying? What's your price range? Are you working with a realtor? And I always go by the mantra that people love to buy, but they hate being sold to. Or people love to buy, but they love shopping with their friends. And when we approach the conversation like their friend, it's going to serve us a lot better than if we're just trying to sell them and qualify them. People can sniff it right away, okay? And now with competition being as rampant as it has ever been, it becomes more and more important to really lean in on developing and being relationship focused, okay? And the way that we do this is by utilizing the 80-20 rule. And essentially what this is we allow the prospect to do 80% of the talking while we listen and understand, and we contribute 20% with open-ended questions and responses. And we also summarize the information that they're giving us back to them so they feel like they're being heard, they feel like they're being understood, okay? And what's also really important, and I can't emphasize this enough, anytime we do ask a question, we want to make sure that we are letting the prospect finish what they are saying, okay? I see it happen all the time where agents will have, like, they'll ask them questions, the prospect will be talking, and they'll just follow up and interrupt them with another question, and nothing will break rapport quicker than interrupting a prospect, okay? So now, in terms of what we need to understand as a real estate agent so we can truly be a solution provider, we have to identify the who, what, where, when, and why. And just to elaborate on this, the who is going to be involved in this decision, right? Is it a spouse, a husband, wife, partner? If it's an investor, are there business partners that are involved? Because we ultimately want to make sure that we are getting everyone on the same page before going into negotiations, okay? And I cannot emphasize this enough. We'll go through this a little bit later on in the video, but we also want to identify the what, okay? What are they looking for? What product of house? They're looking for a house, a single detached condo, townhome, how many beds, baths, any additional amenities? They're looking for a backyard, a pool, right? What part of town, what city, what neighborhood are they looking to move to? And then the when is the time frame, when are they looking to move? And then the why is their motivation. And cannot stress enough, the motivation is the most important piece, but I see agents miss this all the time, right? Because without a motivation, without understanding what the current dissatisfactions are, without understanding the pain points, as well as like the goals and what they're looking to achieve, it's really hard for us to help act as the bridge to get them there and provide solutions to some of the problems that they're facing, right? And for us as real estate agents, as salespeople, we are solution providers, okay? And then a great way to really take the relationship further is identifying their hobbies, their occupation, members of their family, right? And really trying to find common ground with the prospect, okay? Now, the really important piece here, guys, is we want to make sure that we are making the conversation about them and showing that we genuinely care about their well-being, that we're coming from their best interests in mind. Because we have to understand that a lot of people, there is a bad rap with realtors, okay? A lot of people show the mindset that they don't like us, they don't trust us, and oftentimes that they don't need us, right? Especially on the buy side, a lot of people think that realtors are just glorified door openers, and we want to position ourselves in a way where we genuinely care about the prospect that we're chatting with, okay? So now let's dive into the qualification and script, okay? And the way that I usually approach these conversations is I will always start with the motivation. I'll ask them, okay, so what is it about your current home that you're not pleased with right now, that isn't quite working with you, that has you exploring other options? Or what about your current situation has you exploring other properties or other locations, right? And again, we really, really want to dive into the core reason that they are out exploring other options, whether they're in open house, whether they're opting into advertisements. We need to find the core issue, okay? The way that we do this is by using the 4x2 rule. And essentially what the 4x2 rule is that for anything that the prospect is giving you, you want to go 4 layers deep and 2 layers wide, okay? What I mean by that is, as an example, let's just say a prospect gives you, like you ask them, okay, what about your current situation has you exploring other options? Oh, you know what? We are looking to get some more space. Okay, perfect. Why are you looking for more space? Oh, the family is expanding. We're having children. We have family moving in. Oh, okay, awesome. Like how many? How is the family growing? Like, are you looking? Are you looking for more space for you, like a home office? Okay, perfect. Do you have any other family? Right? Like, oh, got the wife. We got the got one kid with another one on the way. Okay, perfect. What are their names? We really want to anchor that. We want to dive deep and find out what their true motivation is while connecting with them on an emotional level. Because again, sales is an emotional game, right? People purchase and they make decisions based on emotions, and then they justify it with logic. And without connecting with people on an emotional level, people will always feel like they're just being sold to. Okay? So understand the motivation, understand the goal, and it's going to allow us to utilize that to act as the bridge to help get them there, and also use it to create some urgency to continue moving them throughout the sales process, because people will run away from pain more than they will walk towards their goals. Okay? So sometimes we have to poke at that pain point a little bit to keep things moving forward, which we will get into later in this video. All right? So now we've understood the motivation. We want to understand, okay, tell me, what areas have you gotten your eyes on? Like, what other areas have you and your wife considered? Okay, get an understanding, like, are they looking one neighborhood? Are they looking all over the city? Are they, do they have a couple in mind? It's really, really important to get a good handle on that. And then for the time frame, right? So we want to stay, okay, so let's picture this, you and your wife, your husband walk into this house and it has the exact layout you're looking for, and you both see yourselves living there. In your mind, what would be the next steps that would need to happen for you in order to feel comfortable in buying it, okay? And then because we structured this question this way, they're going to identify the additional obstacles throughout the sales process that are likely to come up, so you can already start getting ahead of it, okay? And the reason why we want to do this is because a lot of the times, like at face value, prospects will give you an extended time frame, but for us as problem solvers and being solution oriented, we can help them address those obstacles and shorten that time frame to create a little bit of urgency. Okay, so yeah, really, really important. We want to structure the time frame question about, okay, like what would need to happen between this point and this point in order for us to get there. Okay. Now we want to ask the specifics. Okay. The what, walk me through like what you're looking for in a property. What do you want in your next home that you don't currently have in your current home? Okay. How many bedrooms, bathrooms are you looking for? Any amenities, stuff like that. And then the budget. Okay. So from a financing perspective, have you and your partner had a chance to explore what you would be comfortable with payment wise? Okay. And, if they tell you a price range or a budget, okay, perfect. Have you started any conversations with a broker, with a lender yet? If not, we have some great contacts that help serve our clients that they've been super happy with as well. Okay. Now, so after this, we want to identify if there's any other decision makers that would be involved in this process, mainly like a husband or wife or partner. And yeah, again, structure the question around something along the lines of, you mentioned that you have a partner, you have a wife, you have a husband. How does he or she feel about this potential move? Like, have you two spoken about this yet? Oh yeah, we have. Okay, perfect. And now we want to find if they're working with a realtor, so we're not wasting our time. And we ask them, okay, do you have a realtor that's supporting you with this process? Okay. So in asking these questions this specific way, we have now we've structured the questions in a way where we're coming from a place of service, coming from a place of providing value. And it is very, very different than just asking somebody, where are you looking to move? What are you looking to move? How many bedrooms and baths? What's your budget? Are you working with a realtor? Okay. Because again, like every realtor and their dog are asking their buyer prospects those questions. And if you position your qualification in a way which is coming from a place of servitude, immediately you're going to establish way better rapport with a prospect, especially if they're cold and they don't know you, and you know that they're out searching on a bunch of different websites and there's other realtors like reaching out to them. Okay, this becomes more inherently important to understand and to ultimately practice when you're dealing with a colder prospect. Okay, so now we want to outline the next steps and get them excited for the exploratory tour, but first starting with the consultation. Okay, and with the consultation, ultimately we're going to be setting them up on a safe search. We're going to be walking them through the properties in the area. We'll kind of start the process of getting the pre-approval in place. And if there is another decision maker that is present, we also want to get them on board as well. And with the exploratory tour is just about reviewing properties, gives us a chance to further develop the relationship, provide feedback, and really continue to develop the search or refine the search, and then move closer and closer to submitting the offer. Okay, so we do not want to start the exploratory tour without the consultation, and I'm going to explain why. But this is how we start moving the prospect forward. Okay, that we want to transition them to the exploratory tour, but not without the consultation. Okay, so Mr. Prospect, the next logical step for us that I think that would make the most sense is for us to go look at some properties and just get a real sense of what your budget can afford you. Okay, I'm going to handpick some properties that are exactly in alignment with what you are looking for. And what's really cool is that you're not buying anything on this tour. I just want you to experience some homes and kind of get a lay of the land. And it's really going to allow me to get a sense of what you and your husband and your wife really like and what you don't like as well, right? It's also an opportunity for you to see how I work. And it's my favorite part of the process. And I've done this with a ton of my past clients, and they've really loved this because it's so different from moving behind a keyboard and working on Realtor, on Zillow, to getting inside some houses. Okay, so what days of the week work best for you and your wife or your husband? Okay, so again, it really positions it of a place of value, but also kind of shows like we're still moving them throughout the process to get them into a property. Okay, now we want to schedule the consultation. So let's just say we're talking with a prospect on Monday, Tuesday. They still have to be pre-approved. We probably want to leave a few days in between and schedule the showings later in the week. So probably Friday, Saturday, which gives them a little bit of time for you to get the pre-approval and also for you to conduct the consultation. Okay. So to schedule the consultation, we ideally want to have it happen immediately. I had it happen where I'm on the phone with a prospect and I'll be like, oh, are you free to hop into a Zoom right now? And that's the best case scenario. Next best case, like if there's someone else that's involved, is to do it later that afternoon or later in the evening. Okay. And again, I cannot stress this enough, guys. Do not schedule a showing or exploratory tour without conducting the consultation first, especially if you're dealing with colder leads, and especially now, if you are an agent in the States and you're dealing with the NAR settlement. This cannot be overemphasized and overstated. And the reason is because the last thing you want to do is show up to the property without having the opportunity to develop a relationship with the prospect, okay? And the really good thing about doing a quick Zoom consultation is it's a couple of things, okay? So first, you're going to be able to meet face-to-face with the prospect. Immediately, you're going to start to develop rapport. They're going to feel more comfortable in going with you, and you can start establishing that relationship and educating the client, okay? Second, if there is another decision maker that is involved in the process, it gives you the chance to meet with them as well, to requalify them and make sure that them and the initial person that you chatted with is on the same page. Okay. And then third, what a lot of my clients, a lot of buyers that I've worked with have found a lot of value in is we build, like I'll pull up the MLS and I will set up the search, like I'll set up their auto search, their portal right in front of them. It will start going through houses together. Okay. And the reason this is so important is because A, you get a good handle of what they like. B, you get a good handle of what they don't like. And you save so much time. And but the common theme, guys, that I always hammer on is that there's the long way and the wrong way to do things. And by doing this, you are ultimately going to save yourself so much time. Because I've also had it happen where I've conducted a consultation call, and I was ready to schedule showings without doing the consultation call. And because I held it, I ended up finding out that the buyer wasn't qualified or they just weren't serious. And I ultimately told them, okay, it's probably not in your best interest to do showings right now because you aren't qualified, right? And for us as real estate agents and for business owners, the worst thing we can do is waste time. And if we're taking people out on showings and driving all the way across the city to help them open up doors when they're not qualified or they're uninterested, it's the biggest waste of time. And in doing this consultation this way, it'll help you save hours and hours later down the line for disqualifying people, and it'll really help you establish the relationship further with the prospects that are intentful and are serious and are qualified. Okay, so in order to schedule the consultation now, we want to set up a meeting with them, and with the prospect and with their partner, anyone else that's involved in the decision. And I'll just frame it along the lines of, hey, by the way, before we get together for showings on Saturday, I need about 15 to 20 minutes just to hop on a quick Zoom with you. And there's just a couple of things I want to arm you with. And first, I want to go over the market and make sure you guys are armed with the same tools that I have so you can kind of handpick some properties. And I'm also going to get you guys pre-qualified and pre-approved because, again, I want you guys to have the best experience possible. And what I want for us to avoid is for us to not be prepared. And let's just say we go out on showings and we're reviewing properties and you find something that you absolutely love. The last thing I want for you is for us to find that property that you love only to find out that it doesn't make financial sense for you and you can't afford it, or we are not prepared and we can't move on it because we didn't do all of our preparation work, right? I've had a bunch of deals. I've had it happen with a client where we didn't have the pre-approval in place. They left their property and they were just completely devastated. Okay, and then I'll ask them again to emotionally anchor them and tell them, hey, what happened? What would happen if we found something that you were just in love with and you were just unprepared, or you ultimately found out that you couldn't afford it, right? Like how would that make you feel, right? And they'll say, oh, I wouldn't feel that great. Okay, awesome. So why don't we work together and work towards getting all this submitted and getting the pre-approval in place so we can understand what will make sense for us financially, and we can we get a good handle of what we're pre-approved for. We can look at properties in that price range. Does that sound fair enough? They'll say yes. Perfect. Okay. So and most importantly, guys, cannot be overstated. We want to make sure that the client's partner, business partner, wife, spouse is on that consultation as well. We do not want to schedule the tour without the other decision maker on the call. I've had it blow up in my face so many times, and I do not want the same thing to happen to you. And it's just advantageous for everybody to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Okay, so now for the consultation, right? We want to set up a meeting on Zoom. Like, really, we don't have to spend more than 15, 20 minutes. And again, we don't want to meet the prospect for the first time on the property. We want to do as much as possible in advance. And this includes the education, this includes the expectations, the rapport, the relationship establishment. And on this call, what I will do is, again, I will spend some time building more rapport, especially with the other partner that is involved. And I will start to really hammer down on expectations on the market, on what their budget can afford them. And it is critical to really hammer down on this at this stage, because it's going to help you throughout the process. The earlier we have these conversations, the more it's going to help us down the line. And it's also going to help create urgency in the market or in the process, okay? I've had it happen a bunch of times where I did have these conversations earlier on. We didn't talk about the market or the budget or how it's going to affect the way that we kind of strategize putting offers in, and it ultimately came back to bite us, okay? Also on this call, I'm going to pull up the MLS and walk them through the properties in the price range and just do a picture for picture. And I'll ask them throughout the whole process, okay, how do you like this? What do you like about this property? What don't you like? And do you want to schedule the time for this one? Okay. We'll also set up the save search so they get auto notified, and we'll tell them, okay, if you do find anything that you do like, okay, and you're, either you want to go see it or you kind of like how this one looks, you like the location, just send me the MLS number, because it's going to we can set up a showing, and, if we can get ahead of it and be quick to act on it, it's going to give us a higher chance to win the offer. But also, it also helps me better help you, because I get an understanding of kind of what along the lines you're looking for. Okay, and we get more value, and you're developing more rapport throughout the process. And then lastly, we also want to create deadlines for each step. Okay, so if they have to get their deposit in place, we need to communicate to them that they have to have their deposit in an account. Okay. We also, if they don't have the pre-approval, we want to express to them why it's important to have the pre-approval in place before going out on properties for the reason that I just outlined. We don't want to run into a situation where we're not prepared and we can't move on a property, or we find something that we love and we can't afford it, which is going to be devastating. Okay. I'll also go into, at this point in the conversation, why it's important to have the deposit in place, and why, based on how quickly your market is moving, whether it's a seller's market or buyer's market, especially in a seller's market, that if we find something that is priced correctly and they love it, there's a high chance that someone else is going to love it, and we will need to move quickly and get an offer that is competitive on the property in order for us to secure it. Okay. And a good example here, guys, in doing this effectively is to communicate other stories, right? So I would pull up stories like, hey, we went in on a property last week that had, 20, 30 offers on it. And because we were able to, we were able to structure our offer competitively, we ended up winning it. Or, we go through the process of what a bully offer is. And just start setting these expectations on how things are going to continue to look moving forward. Okay. And while creating deadlines in the process to make sure that they are prepared to go into a property when the opportunity arises. Okay. So now going into setting expectations. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. Real estate is a game of chess, not checkers, and it is a complex game, and every move that we make is going to affect the outcome later on in the process and with the following conversations. Okay. And for me, right, it's always served me to have these conversations, whether they're tough conversations or not, to have them as early as possible, because it's going to educate the clients to the point where they're just comfortable with writing an offer, but they are excited for it. But it's also an entirely different process and timeline when people understand the expectations and long-term goals, and the urgency to help them make that decision. Because especially in a seller's market where it's super competitive and emotions are running high, want to make sure that they are most prepared in terms of what to expect and educated on why the urgency is necessary in order to secure a property. Okay. And in order for us to provide them the best service, which is ultimately allowing them to invest in themselves and their future through real estate. And especially if you're in a competitive market, we want to make sure that they are armed with everything that they need to ensure that they are actually winning offers, okay? So the way that we do this throughout the initial conversations and through the process of the showings is by grounding the expectations. And one of the major expectations that we need to educate them on and get their understanding on is the interest rates, okay? So whether they're going up, they're going down, they're usually the largest driver of prices, both on a macro level and on a micro level. And understanding how the interest rates impact the market, it's all and like how it affects buyers' purchasing power is going to be incredibly important, right? And for example, if interest rates drop, it's going to increase the amount of buyers that are going to be able to get into the market. It's ultimately going to drive prices up and make it more expensive for people, right? We also need to make sure that we understand and the client understands what ultimately determines interest rates to change and how it's going to affect their purchase of the property, whether they do it now or whether they do it later, okay? So for anyone watching that doesn't understand what determines which, inflation determines the variable rates, and that's where these big announcements from the Bank of Canada or the Federal Reserve come from, right? And then the bond yields, they determine the fixed rates, which are usually updated instantaneously, okay? So another important key thing here, guys, is with sales, like people are always going to be more receptive by being led to a conclusion through questions and self-discovery over being told what's true, okay? So we want to have a line of questioning that's going to allow us to guide the prospect to what we are trying to educate them on, because a lot of their opinions are grounded in years and years of their own education, their own environment, right? And if they disagree with you, they're not going to absorb the information. They're going to have their walls up. They're going to internally or externally disagree with you. Then we want to help navigate that through questioning and self-discovery. Okay, so for interest rates, a line of questioning that I would use is something along the lines of, like when I'm having this conversation, I would say, okay, have you seen what's going on with interest rates lately? Oh, yeah, kind of. Okay, do you actually know what controls interest rates, right? Oh, no, I don't. Okay, well, inflation determines the variable rates and bond yields return, or bond yields affect the fixed rates, okay? And what do you think is going to happen if interest rates do go down and become cheaper for more people to afford? Do you think that's going to drive prices up or down? I'm actually not sure. Okay, so if more people can afford a house, and we're in a market where people are jumping all over real estate, and they now get more purchasing power because of the lower interest rate, do you think it's going to increase competition or decrease competition? Oh, it's going to increase competition. Okay, perfect. Do you think with more competition, that's going to drive prices up or down? Oh, probably up. Okay. And if we're in a market where we're low inventory and the inventory is dropping, and where interest rates drop and the demand is increasing, right? Do you think that it's going to be more expensive or less expensive to wait if interest rates do drop? Okay. And if people start saving hundreds of thousands a month in interest payments, do you think that it's going to spike prices up or make things cheaper, right? Or probably make things more expensive, 100%, right? And when you do it that way, you help them navigate the conversation through active questioning. They will be a lot more receptive to where we are trying to get them to and through our education, okay? And again, the intent of this conversation is to help people understand the simple ways of how interest rates affect the market, regardless of what happens over time and in history. Like, markets climb, and there's also going to be temporary drops, right? Which is completely natural. The ebbs and flows, like the average market cycle is around 7 years, right? But over an extended time horizon, over the course of 30, 50, 100 years, the market will naturally appreciate the price of the property. And this has to do with immigration, it has to do with, the birth rate and all the other factors that naturally drive prices up. So a lot of people will focus on the micro level and saving like on a monthly payment, but we also want to expand their time horizon and outline how it's going to benefit them in the long run, to ultimately invest, whether the interest rates are going up or down. Okay. The next expectation that we really want to ground is the market trends. Okay. So similar to the interest rates, most people, they get their information from the news or the headlines. Okay. And, the news, albeit, love it or hate it, it's often a reflection of national headlines and prices, and might not be specific to your market. Okay. And if the market is crashing, be honest and tell them that it could be a good time to wait, or it also be a good time to throw in a low ball offer. If it is a good time to buy, then show them that as well, guys. Again, we want to come from a place of servitude and having their best interest in mind. And if it's not the right time for them to invest in real estate, then just be honest about it, right? Not everyone is going to buy or sell tomorrow. All right. Another expectation that we really, especially with first time home buyers, this is it very, very critical. But a lot of the times this is going to come up, is that there is no perfect home. Okay. And this is likely the most important conversation that we are going to have as real estate agents, that we need to be able to have this conversation communicated effectively and guide people to where they want to go. And the earlier we have this conversation, the better it's going to serve us later, and the less it's going to blow up in our face. Because no matter what we do, people are always going to want stuff that's outside of their price range, and they're going to ultimately end up needing to compromise on the lot, the view, the extra space, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, etc., especially if you're in an inclining market, right? And we need to really hammer in that no goal is ever achieved in one step. And we also need to hammer in what we are going to expect to get in this market. And if we can have this conversation on the initial consultation, it's going to serve us. We could also have this conversation on that first showing. Okay. But not taking these steps and not having this conversation, it's ultimately going to hurt us. And if they don't make a move on investing to themselves, investing in real estate, they're actually, especially in the inclining market, they're going to continue to fall farther and farther behind and not reach their goals. And it is our duty to have their best interest in mind and to have these tough conversations so they truly understand this. Okay. So a good framework that I like to use is like an analogy to help kind of bring this home is the car analogy. Okay. It's a good way to kind of start this conversation to help navigate it. And I'll ask a prospect, what is your dream car, right? What is the one car that you wanted since you were, a teenager, right? And they'll just throw some random out here, guys. They'll say like a Ferrari. Okay, perfect. Okay. What was your first car? Okay. They'll say a Honda Civic. Okay, awesome. What are you currently driving right now? Oh, a BMW. Okay, awesome. Then I'll ask them, why aren't you driving the Ferrari right now? Right? And a lot of the times they'll be taken back and you'll say, well, okay, what you're telling me is that you took the first step of buying your first car, the Honda Civic, and then you took the next step of buying your BMW, and you're likely going to need to take a couple more steps to get into your Ferrari. Okay? So do you see how it is the exact same as it relates to taking steps towards your dream home? Right? We're not going to find the perfect property right away, right? Right now, we're looking for a 5 out of 10, but we're going to use that as a stepping stone to get into the 7 out of 10 home, and then eventually the 9 or the 10 out of 10 home. Okay? And usually people are pretty receptive to that analogy, but then we want to take this another step further. Okay? So we want to, again, hammer down these expectations. This is the most important expectation to set with your buyers. And the further we can do this, the easier the sale is going to go. And usually the quicker the sale is going to go as well, guys. So there are, 3 different markets. And depending on your market, this is where we need to communicate what we are expecting to get for them as a buyer. Okay. So in a slow buyer's market, this is when listings are sitting for 60, 90 days and there's over 6 months of inventory. This is where the buyer has more leverage in the negotiations and they could really get a good deal from someone who is needing to sell because the market is declining and the prices have fallen, right? And in this specific situation, a buyer can expect to get an 8 or 9 out of 10 properties, and they can sleep on a property overnight if they don't want to put an offer in right away, right? Or they can even make lowball offers and try to circle back and get more aggressive on deals, right? And you should, in this specific type of market, you should be able to get most buyers into their favorite communities and have most of the boxes checked off. But again, this is only in a buyer's market, and you can tell them this in the first conversations, okay? Next is a neutral or balanced market. And this is when prices are very stable and there are really only 3 to 6 months worth of inventory. There's not a whole lot of pressure to get offers in, but a lot of desirable homes that are priced correctly will likely move quickly. So we want to make sure that this is communicated with the client. So if they do find a property that they like, that they love, and it is priced correctly, then we will want to put an offer in order to secure it, okay? And this is where we can tell them that we can expect to get anywhere from a 6 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 in this market, okay? Then lastly is the seller's market, okay? So this is a hot market. This is where listings are going into multiple offers all the time if the house is priced correctly. And in this case, and if you guys are in a seller's market, really, really beat this down with the client. We are looking for a 5 out of 10 property, and we want to make sure this is communicated thoroughly throughout the entire process, because the longer it takes them to realize that, the more it's going to cost them, the more that they're likely going to get priced into a lower quality home, a smaller home, or in a worse neighborhood because the market is moving so fast. It is going to cost you more money because you can't win offers. It's going to create less trust because your ability to win offers for them, if we are not on the same page on what they can expect in a seller's market, okay? So this conversation needs to be held in the consultation, but at the very latest in that first showing, okay? Because again, we want to make sure that, hey, we're not looking for a 9 out of 10 here, right? We're not going to find a 9 out of 10 unless you can wildly overpay for a property, which we also don't want them to do, okay? So that is the main objection, the main expectation that we really want to hit home on, guys. And then we also want to express the migration and how it's going to affect the market, okay? And it's critical for us to understand whether the market is growing or shrinking and all the other factors that kind of play account of that, okay? And this includes the job market, immigration, like prices in other cities that are driving people to your market, right? And I'm just going to give an example. In Alberta, we pay a lot less taxes than a lot of the rest of the country. And in doing that, there are a lot of investors that are looking towards Calgary and Alberta, right? So we want to be able to elaborate and express this and educate the clients on this as to why, on a macro level, there's more people moving to our market that is going to affect their price. It's going to affect the appreciation of their home and make their investment feel more secure, okay? And the same thing is true for if someone is looking to buy, okay? If things are getting tax less, if people are migrating out of your market, out of your province, out of your state, we also want to express that to the client and how it may affect inventory, how it may affect their property, their investment, and whatnot, okay? And having having these conversations earlier on in the process is going to allow us to arm our buyers with the right tools, with the right information to also beat down expectations, and give them everything they need to ensure that when the right opportunity does present itself, that they are ready to make a move on the property. And if all of this is executed correctly, it's going to drastically decrease the time frame for us to get an offer in on our property and ultimately close the deal. All right, now for the exciting stuff. This is the exploratory tour and the showings, okay? And the goal with the exploratory tour is to transition our prospects from online interactions and get them into viewing properties so we can continue to establish trust with them and really ground expectations on what they can get, what they can afford, and ultimately submit offers, okay? Now, we always want to educate the prospect while we're working through this, but continue to set next steps and moving them through the sales process. And getting the buyer tour, it's incredibly important for yourself and more importantly for your clients, right? And our main goal is to get them into a property that is in their best interest without having to show them 20, 30 properties, right? Because if we don't do a good job grounding expectations and we're driving around cities showing them 20, 30 properties, it is a bad service to them. It is a bad service to you. And it's going to break that trust and rapport with them. And it is also inefficient for our business if we're driving around showing 20, 30 properties without them putting an offer on it. It means we aren't doing a good job grounding expectations, and ultimately it's hurting you and them, okay? So before we go out on showings and we go out on the tour, we should have successfully established a relationship and qualified the prospect. We should have met with them face-to-face on Zoom. If they have another decision maker, a partner, spouse, whatever it is, we also want to make sure that we have connected with them, we've requalified them, and we have gotten them on the same page, both as to what they're looking for and the strategy of how we are going to approach the home purchasing process, okay? We will have also walked them through properties on the MLS based on their budget and kind of walk through, gotten a good understanding of what they are looking for opposed to what they can also afford. We will have gotten them pre-approved and we truly understand what their budget is. And we will have started to communicate and set expectations on the interest rates, on what their budget can afford. That, like, if we're in a seller's market, that we're looking for a 5 out of 10. If we're in a buyer's market, we can get into a 9 out of 10. And really making sure that we are all on the same page on what they can afford, what we're looking for, and our game plan to put an offer on a property when the right opportunity arises, okay? And we also have everything in place to submit an offer, and we've communicated that we want to be best prepared to submit the offer if the right opportunity arises. And this includes having the deposit in place, or at least having easy access to it so we can put an offer down and have the deposit within a couple of days. We will have the pre-approval letter in place and express that, like, if the right opportunity does come up and is priced correctly and they like it, in order for us to secure it, we want to be able to move quickly, and we do this by being prepared. And there might be a little bit of pressure in a short period of time for them to make a move in order to secure it. So again, like you've noticed throughout the course of this entire buyer conversion training, each piece of this, like, step-by-step process, we are carefully having these conversations early on, so later down the process, it doesn't come back to bite us in the face. And I've had situations in the past where, just like this, I had a buyer that was incredibly excited to move on property. We didn't have the husband on the same page, right? And we also didn't go into what is going to happen when with us being in an incredibly heavy seller's market, that we need to move quickly on a property if we are to secure it. And then to help tell the story here, guys, this buyer, she marked the property that we found a 10 out of 10. It was in her budget, and she absolutely loved it. She was so excited. She's like, I see myself living here. She went home. The husband wasn't on the same page. We both agreed before I dropped her off that we were going to put an offer on the property, and ultimately things ended up falling through. And the reason I'm heading home on all this, guys, because I want to make sure you guys are most prepared and have all of this in place in order to make sure that the clients are prepared to put offers and you are securing more offers and ultimately more deals. Okay. So if we have not done all of this in sequence, if we haven't qualified, we haven't met with them on Zoom, we haven't connected with the other decision makers, we haven't walked them through the properties on the MLS, we haven't gotten them pre-approved, we haven't communicated set expectations, and we don't have everything in place to submit the offer, do not pass go, do not collect $200, okay? Because it is going to come, especially if you're dealing with colder prospects, this is going to come and bite you in the butt later down in the process, okay? So if this all has been done, we've done everything correctly, now the fun begins. We want to do the tour and start going into properties, okay? So before we do, what's really, really important to understand is that the order that we schedule the tour is incredibly important, okay? And again, there is the long way and the wrong way to do things, and we want to do it in sequence in a way that best serves the client and best serves us as well, okay? And a lot of people will typically schedule showings in a sequence that is most convenient to them, like it's all in one loop, or it's close to them, right? Or to the client based on what they recommend, right? But again, with everything we do, we want to be as intentional with our time as possible so we can also max out our ROI. And whatever we can, we want to book the worst property at first, okay? This allows us to comment on the flaws of the property and truly gain the trust of the buyer to show them that we are actually looking out for their best interests. And we're not trying to shove down any property that we come across, okay? So with a viewing or with a tour, I typically do not like to schedule more than 3 to 4 viewings in one outing, okay? Showing one is not efficient for you or them, and showing 7 is ultimately going to make them more confused and is not time efficient either. We want to limit it to 3, max 4. If we do any more, again, it is a low level of service. So present 3 or 4 options and get them scheduled, and with the worst being first, okay? And as we pull up to the property, again, we're ultimately there to essentially trash that first property, and we can comment on the roof, the windows, the appliances, landscaping, anything else that we can initially pick up from the pictures. And we want to emphasize, while we're working through it with the buyer, that these are deal breakers, but it's just something to be aware of. And if we do decide to go in on this property, that we can kind of go into negotiation. And this, again, it shows that you're not trying to shove a property down their throat, but it also shows them that you're educated and they can feel comfortable because they are working with a realtor that has their back, okay? So now we're coming to the first home. And again, the main focus of the first property is to build trust with the prospects by identifying some of the flaws of the property and continue having conversations to ground their expectations. So show up early and walk through and identify some of the key features to point out as you're walking through with them. Turn on all the lights. And again, if we show up at the same time as the prospect, it's incredibly unprofessional. It shows that we're careless, and it doesn't also give us the opportunity to be prepared, right? And us being prepared is going to have a massive impact on how we succeed in this business, okay? So we've got to the house, we've turned everything on, we've identified all the key things that we're going to identify with the prospects. We want to greet the clients outside with enthusiasm and express excitement to meet with them, especially if you're just seeing each other for the first time face to face. And again, match commensurate energy and be genuine. Like, try not to be someone that you're not. Like, for me, I'm kind of monotone. I don't get too high or too low. Like, I try and keep it myself. But again, like, still be enthusiastic and excited to see them, right? And from there, while we're on the street or on the sidewalk, we can already start pointing out some of the things that they should be aware of. So if the roofs are curling, we want to identify that. If there's old windows that may need replacement, we might want to identify that. And then if there's large trees in the yard, we also want to point out that it could, like the roots may go into the sewers and it might require a sewer replacement, right? And we can also talk about the siding, the cracks in the foundation, and whatever defects that we can identify, we want to point out to them. And again, say that it's not a deal breaker, but it's just some things to consider, okay? And again, read their energy, because the last thing we want to do is continuously shit on the property and them not, like, especially if they like the property, we don't want to beat it down if they had every intention of putting an offer on a property. We just want to outline to them that these are things that we need to be aware of if we do decide to go in on it. Again, and this is going to be the quickest way for establishing rapport and gaining their trust, by identifying what they should look out for and how we can structure the offer to take it into account if we do decide to go in on the property. And if it is a newer home, guys, like, a lot of this won't apply, but we should always make the effort to point out the initial issues and anything that you can foresee happening. And again, the reason for this is trust. And many clients are going to have to guard up, especially if it's the first time meeting you, because again, they think that they don't like us, they don't need us, they don't want us, they don't trust us, and we are trying to push a home on them. And we can flip the table on them by showing that we are on their side right away to lower their guard, and this is ultimately going to shorten your sales cycle, okay? And after each thing we point out, make sure you let the buyers know that this isn't a deal breaker, unless it truly is a deal breaker, right? Like, a cracked foundation could be a major one. And we also want to emphasize that these are just things to be aware of. And whether we adjust for them in the offers or we just disregard it completely, these are things to consider. And we, like with anything, everything is negotiable, okay? And it really just depends on the type of the market that you're in. And I like to, for me, like when I've had these conversations with buyers, I'll say something along the lines of, nothing is a deal breaker, but everything can be negotiated. There is a cost. And if we can find anything major, we can always incorporate it into the offer and ask for a discount, or even ask the sellers to fix it. Okay. So it's just something to be aware of, so we don't get super excited about the home and have it all fall apart once we've made an offer. We just want to make sure that, again, we are setting the expectations with the client, while also showing them that we are on their side. Now we've expressed, we pointed out all the defects on the outside. Again, we want to understand that the main goal of the first hoe is to build trust and pay very close attention, because we don't want to ruin the sale if they truly love the home. And before I go in with clients, I'll stop with them on the doorstep and just say, like, hey, I've already been through the house. I've turned on the lights, and I've kind of notice a couple of things that we'll kind of go through together. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow behind you and just read your energy, okay? And I just want to see your reactions at the entrance and really see, like, your reactions to the kitchen, the living room, and it just helps me get the gauge of some of your preferences and what you're looking for, what you like, what you don't like. And so I can see if there's any specifics that we can kind of put our focus on for future viewings. And if there's anything that you don't like, right? Like if you don't like a purple kitchen, or you don't like the way that this flooring is, we can ensure that we don't schedule viewings with this on properties moving forward. And again, having these conversations is going to continue to establish the trust factor with your buyers. Okay. Now, going through the home, what we're going through, we are continuing to read the client's energy. And if they are getting excited about the property, we want to talk it up with them. Okay, if they don't like certain elements, we want to agree with them. The last thing you want to do, guys, and the thing, especially if you're dealing with colder prospects, is to try to sell them a property that they very clearly dislike. Okay. We also, while we're walking through with it, we want to identify any potential issues that could come up with the home, similar to as we did outside on the lawn. We'll be checking windows for the date stamp to see if they're nearing the end of life, or the furnace, or the water tank, and also looking around the stairs and the foundation for stress cracks and wear and tear. And always reassure them when we are identifying these things that these aren't a deal breaker and that they can be negotiated. Okay. And during the first viewing, our main focus is truly building trust, and especially if we haven't met them before. Then moving into the next properties, we can start having and continuing to have these conversations about market trends and grounding expectations, right? If we did our job properly, it will make the following conversations more effective and helpful. But again, the first property is all about building trust. Okay. Now, moving into our mindset and conversations for the following showings. Okay. The idea is to set the tone so we can continue to have open and candid conversations, these hard conversations with the buyers around the market, the conditions, how interest rates and how migration is going to affect their property. We'll also try to create some urgency by grounding these expectations on what they can afford and how we can help get them into a home before the market takes off on them. Okay, and these combos need to happen after each property or whenever feels appropriate, right? But we want to continuously having these conversations at each one, additional to the conversations on the properties, because again, it's going to continuously educate them while shortening your sales cycle, which again is a higher service to them and is a higher service to you. And everything we're doing in this course in agent school is to get the highest ROI from the time that we are putting in. And in doing this and laying this all out and grounding expectations, educating the client, providing value, establishing trust, this is how we are most effective with our time. Okay. So the discussions we want to continue to have with each viewing should be around interest rates, should be around the market trends, both at a macro level and micro level. We want to continuously reemphasize that there is no perfect home, that if we're in a slow or a buyer's market, that we can get away with lowballing and putting in or finding a 9 out of 10. If we're in a neutral market, we can try to find a 6 or 9 out of 10. And then if we're in a hot seller's market, we are only looking for a 5 out of 10. Okay, cannot overstate this. This is the most frequent conversation that you should be having. We also want to go into migration, price history on the home, examples of people that have missed out on properties, right? And then next steps, if we were to move forward, and how we structure our offer to make it competitive, and what the next pieces of the process looks like, okay? And after each home, I like to do a temperature check on their thoughts of the home and the livability, the size, the location, and how it compares to some of the previous views. I'll even ask them, okay, like based on everything we've seen so far, like what would you rank this out of 10? Okay. And in doing that, because we set the expectations with the clients that, okay, like we are looking for, especially in the seller's market, we're only looking for a 5 out of 10, right? Okay, so if we did a good job of setting that expectation, they're telling us we're finding a 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. Well, then this gives us the in to start having the conversations of submitting an offer. Okay, and again, the ultimate goal of the tour is to help the buyer make educated decisions, but we are doing this education continuously, grounding these expectations for them to ultimately put in an offer. Okay, now after the tour, right, I like to do a recap again. Ask them, okay, what would we rank each property? Ask them for feedback, and then ask them what did we like best about each property we saw today? What didn't we like best? And we want to start grounding the next steps. And if possible, like if we set the expectations and beat them down as much as possible, we might even be in a position to submit an offer. Okay. And we'll like, if they aren't interested to put an offer in, they want to see more listings, ask when we want to schedule listings next. Okay, again, we'll always want to continuously drive them through the sales process. So you'll ask them, okay, when properties come up during the week that I think are a good fit for you, like, what's the best time for you guys to see going and go view them? Okay, now if they are interested and they love the property that you showed them, we can subtly start talking about the next steps that we are going to work through to get them to weigh the offer. Okay, so if we've done this correctly, we can have the conversation about the deposit. If they don't have the deposit in place, we want to make sure that they have access to that right away. So that could be communicated to the listing agent. Okay. Also, we should have the pre-approval in place, and I want to also tell them, okay, that like this is priced, like at market or below market value or above market value. This is what we can expect in relating to competing with other offers, right? So we also want to make them feel more comfortable, like, hey, like we are in a competitive market. That like this is what I foresee occurring, right? Like we're going to be likely up against multiple offer situations. In order for us to get ahead of it, these are the steps that we can take. Like we can also have conversations about bully offers and getting ahead, or this is how we can best position our offer in order to secure this in. Okay, and like if this is a 10 out of 10 property for you, like how much is this worth to you to getting in on this, right? And that's where we can open up the door for conversation to structure the offer strong enough to ensure that it is secured. Okay. We also want to, just walk through like how the offer process works and how they're going to have hours under tension to make a decision. And even if they wait for a day, like how possible it is that they might lose the listing to someone else, right? Especially if they love the property, and also explain, how the conditional period works and how we want to structure the offer and make it more competitive. And the reason we want to bring these up is to see how comfortable they are with everything, right? Because if they seem tense and they seem nervous, it means that they haven't been coached enough, they haven't been educated enough, and we haven't been guiding them throughout this entire process. So we want to make sure that they are prepared, they are ready, and not just ready, but they are excited when they make an offer. And if they are excited when they throw down an offer, it means you did everything right. It means you followed this process to a T. We educated them. We got their trust. We established rapport. We set expectations correctly. And ultimately, if we structure the offer correctly and we win the property, it is going to lead to a very successful, happy remainder of the transaction. Okay, so in conclusion, the ultimate goal of all of this video, again, is to help the buyers make the most informed decision and smart choice for not just their home, but for their future. And in order for us to do this, it's more than just booking tours and opening doors for them, right? Every single home is an opportunity to move buyers through the process a little further and a little better. And we never want to push someone into a home that they don't want or is not good for them. But often we just need to help them understand that the quicker that they make a move, right, and the faster they do it, it's for their own good. And it is our job and our duty to our clients to make sure that their expectations are in line with what the market is, and that they have the best education and the best strategies to help them get into their next home and to ultimately be excited for it. So again, everybody, that is how we effectively convert and qualify and develop relationships and trust, and ultimately get offers submitted throughout the buyer process. Okay. And if you follow this to a T, this is ultimately going to allow you to build better relationships. It's going to shorten your time frames. It's going to allow you to educate and provide value to your clients, which is ultimately going to lead to more sales and more conversions with your buyers. Okay. So that is the video for today, and we will see you on the next video.